Clear. Thank you.
Exposure.
Tonight, maximum exposure with horror mastermind Clive Barker.
Exposure.
Reality is what we live. Fantasy is what we escape to.
Exposure.
Plus, it's your turn in the dentist's chair.
Exposure.
And who's watching the kids?
Exposure.
Sci-Fi short film program.
We begin tonight with On Edge from British director Fraser Lee. After toiling in the world of low-budget films, Lee broke out to create this disturbing tale of dental decadence, which he scored with his own band, Self-Destructive Nature.
I just like the strange and subversive aspects of life, and I think it's very effective when you bring those out into the open and explore them. I have to confess that I'm a bit of a dental pervert, really. I like the equipment and the sights and the sounds and the smells while you're in the surgery. And I think because I didn't have any bad experiences, I wanted to create one of my own, so hence the film. And it had to be a horror because we want to drag British horror into the 21st century, kicking and screaming.
Dr. Samuelson immediately.
I'm afraid Dr. Samuelson's away on holiday at the moment. Patients with appointments have to be seen first, so if you will be patient and wait your turn, you will be seen. Hello, dental practice. Janet, hi. How is it? Yes, what did he say? Well, I mean, it's absolutely...
Excuse me, you're not supposed to be back here.
I've been waiting almost an hour.
And you are?
Mr. Thurlow. Peter Thurlow. Broken tooth, Brazil nut I was eating and when...
Well, let's not discuss it in the corridor. You'd better come up. Here we are, Mr. Thurlow.
I normally see Dr. Samuelson.
Yes, well, I'm afraid he's not here at the moment. He's,
on holiday. I know, lucky for some.
Well, I'm Dr. Matthews. Why don't you make yourself comfortable? Good. Well, I see we haven't seen you for a checkup in, well over a year.
Not for a checkup, no.
So you won't have seen the hygienist recently?
And I don't need to see one now. Are you on commission or something? Haven't you got an assistant?
No need for one, Mr. Thurlow. Not with all this modern technology. One of the benefits of being a private patient, for those who can afford it. What exactly do you do for a living, if you don't mind my asking?
Car salesman.
Oh, really? Oh, well, then you know all about modern technology. Man and machine in perfect harmony, eh, Mr. Thurlow? Airbags save lives. Fillings save teeth. Braces improve dental alignment. Chrome spoilers make a car look cool. It's all the same thing, really, isn't it? Good. Well, let's take a look at you, shall we? Open wide, please. Yes. Well, I think we can safely say we've located the problem area. It's pretty nasty, Mr. Thurlow. It's split from the root to the crown. And the gum is starting to redden and swell as well. I wouldn't be surprised if that wasn't infected. I may have to cut part of that away for you.
Oh, please, no gory details.
Don't worry about anything, Mr. Thurlow. Good. Now, I'm just going to give you a jab. And then we can get started. As you're a little bit squeamish, I'm going to suggest that I give you an extra shot of Valium. And that way I can work without upsetting you. Good. Oh, it's funny when you think about it. Considering all the food that has to be cut and crushed by your deciduous and permanent incisors, canines and molars, it's frankly a miracle there's anything left in our mouths at all. And humans have comparatively small teeth, you know. Apparently it's one of the signs of our superiority over the animals. I don't think there's going to be enough left to cap there. The tooth next to it is pretty badly cracked as well. What the hell was in that nut? Now, keep very still for me, please. There we are. There. You want this as a souvenir? No, I thought not. Now, to do this properly, I really need to clear out your root canal for you and then drive a metal post into your gum. It's a long process, but it'll save you a lot of bother in the long run. Very still. That's better. You can see some daylight through the hole. Now that we've got some room to maneuver, I think I should bring in the big guns to get things in place for you. We had a fascinating case of tooth squeeze in here last week. You know what that is, Mr. Thurlow? Tooth squeeze? Oh, I'm sorry, of course you can't answer me at the moment, can you? No, he was an airline pilot, this chap. And his aeroplane depressurized. And it turned out that he had a little bubble of air trapped underneath one of his fillings. And as the cabin air decreased, the air in his tooth expanded, and his tooth exploded. Literally blew up right in his mouth. Bits of tooth embedded in his tongue. Oh, it's a terrible mess. You know, the same thing happens to deep-sea divers. Only their teeth implode. Yes. Oh, and I've seen worse. Yes, I remember one kid, oh, poor kid, he roller skated headfirst into a drinking fountain and he... Oh. I'm sorry, Mr. Thurlow. No more gory details, right? Well, you know, I think the best thing would be for me to put you under while I finish off. And that way I can work without disturbing you. Okay.
On Edge will continue.
It's always nice for me to receive a script where somebody else is going to have the prosthetic makeup put on and I can stand and snigger. And it's not going to happen to me. But I really liked the black comedy that Dr. Matthews has, and I took to that straight away. You want this as a souvenir? No, I thought not.
Next, the terrifying conclusion of On Edge. And later, the dark and twisted origins of Clive Barker exposed.
The very essence of storytelling is an encounter with otherness and with the unknown.
Exposure will return. Stay right here, or I'll tear your soul apart.
Exposure.
Counteragent.
You care about me like you care about that rat.
What makes you think I don't care about the rat?
The Invisible Man must stop his Quicksilver madness. Cold turkey.
You who has the madness, your prophecies are crap.
The Invisible Man, a sci-fi original series. All new episode disappearing Friday at 8. Part of the summer of sci-fi.
Now, sit back, relax, and let the drilling continue in the conclusion of director Fraser Lee's On Edge.
Don't worry, Mr. Thurlow. By the time you wake up, I'll have finished, and you'll be as good as new. Anyway, I think you've been through enough for one day. I'll give you a temporary filling now. And we'll do that root canal work on your next appointment. You know, I wanted to be an artist, really. I took the exam when I was at school. But I was a bit of a stroppy child. Yes. Yes. They took me out of circulation for a while. Oh, this is no good. No good at all. I need something modern. Something technological. Well, you're a very lucky man, Mr. Thurlow. Not many people get to have this baby in their mouths. Of course, you know, one day all dentistry will be performed by laser. Precision. Artistry. Oh, what fun we'll have. Oh, I'm sorry, Mr. Thurlow. My fault. Not looking at what I'm doing. No problem. Of course, you know they were wrong to kick me out like that. And all they did was nurture a great talent. My talent. You see, it's a vocation with me, Mr. Thurlow. It's a calling. I know that what I'm doing is right. I was simply ahead of my time. Of course, you know, 100 years ago, all of this would have been done without anesthetic. Oof, a horribly painful experience. But thanks to modern techniques, I'll be finished in, no more than a few hours. No, just kidding. Oh, back in the land of the living, are we? For a minute there, I thought I'd overdosed you. No, we're just waiting for the last bit to dry now. Oh, wait a minute. No, it's all right. I know what that is. You mustn't be up and about yet. I haven't quite finished. Just a few last touches.
No, dentist.
What's that, Mr. Thurlow?
No, dentist.
Oh, yes. Yes, you're quite right. I'm no dentist. I always wanted to be one. But I couldn't pass my exams. So they wouldn't give me my certificate. I never could. I can't pass exams. You see, I get too angry too easily. So they took me out of circulation for a while. Bastards. Still, from time to time, I get to try out a few of my ideas. Shall I tell you what I do, Mr. Thurlow? I move into a new area. I pick up the yellow pages and I look up all the private dental practices in turn. And then I visit each one of them. And occasionally, like today, I get lucky. I find an empty operating room, though not all as nice as this one. And then I wait for custom. And you must admit I do look the part. White coat, smart tie, good speaking voice. And when was the last time you asked to see a dentist's credentials? You don't give a as long as you get to be seen first. Am I right? Or am I right?
Who's in there?
My cue to leave. Good job I remembered to lock the door, eh? Well, goodbye, Mr. Thurlow. And thank you. Oh, and don't worry about your new look. You'll get used to it. They all do. Eventually. Mr. Thurlow, don't forget to floss.
Now, director Fraser Lee takes you inside one of his favorite haunts, the bell tower of St. George, London.
I think it's a good cathartic experience for a lot of people to go and see a very scary movie that touches on subjects that they might not really want to address. And I think everybody can relate to being scared of the dentist because most people are. The dentist as a villain is the perfect villain for me because if you think about the amount of power a dentist has over the intimate parts of your body, you pay this guy to probe around in your most innermost regions of your mouth with pointy objects and bits of metal and stuff. You actually pay him to do that. And if this guy just happens to be a psycho and not the real thing, then you're in a whole lot of trouble. So he's the perfect villain, really. And Doug Bradley, I think, played him very well. It was a chance for Doug as well to act without prosthetic makeup. I think he's a very good actor. He has a great presence, and he doesn't necessarily need heaps of latex over his face to scare people, and that's something I wanted to explore, and I think he did a terrific job there because he certainly scared the hell out of me whenever he was on camera. Also, it was like Pinhead's revenge because he got to do it to the other guy. My next project is my first feature called Urbane, which is a 21st century noir horror thriller. It's set in the dark underbelly of London's Soho, and we've got Doug Bradley again. He's playing a satanic nightclub owner called Richard Germain. I always look on the dark side, I'm very, very interested in what goes on beneath the surface, and I'm quite a nocturnal creature, and I like to get out on the streets of Soho late at night and see what's happening. I ended up using the Slime Light, the fetish nightclub, in Angel in London, purely by accident, really. Didn't expect to get the place, but we got in there, and I used to go there every weekend and get up to no good on a Saturday night through till Sunday morning. So it was quite strange to be back in this place, but shooting my first film. And I saw a few familiar stains on the floor that brought back a few memories.
Stay tuned for a glimpse of Clive Barker's early work in the cinema, and watch me in Clive's Salome and The Forbidden when exposure returns.
For the first time on television, the early short films of writer-director Clive Barker.
You pick your movie camera and you make a movie.
When exposure continues.
Exposure.
Next week, Janine Garofalo stars in a spine-tingling urban legend from the screenwriter of Jurassic Park, David Kemp. On Exposure. Next Wednesday at 10. Part of the summer of sci-fi.
Exposure.
Clive Barker is a novelist, painter, playwright, and filmmaker. He recently executive produced the Academy Award-winning feature, Gods and Monsters. Tonight, we'll examine what inspires this seminal creator of modern horror films and take a brief look at his early short film work.
I cannot understand the fascination of realism. It just loses me. If I get a chance as an artist to use a brush or a paint or a pen to make something other, then I want it to be as other as I can make it. Do you see what I mean? I want to escape. I want to go to some place where I am not in my waking life. And I stress in my waking life because I think I might actually be going to some place or attempting to construct some place that appears in my dream life. I think just as the surrealists were attempting to create worlds which were expressions of the unconscious, I think I'm doing much of the same thing. I think that I do recognize occasionally dreamscapes. Art is, I would argue, a place where you celebrate the imagination, not find excuses for it. You know, some of the great visionaries are people who created the monstrous and the strange and the other with paint for patrons hundreds of years before the camera had been invented, and did so with a kind of clarity and a crispness and a vividness which CGI cannot yet come close to creating. And so I think it's very important that somebody taking up a camera and saying, gee, I'm going to make a movie which is going to have some fantastic element, not just be looking at movies, but be looking at paintings and opera and theater. I was 17 when I made Salome, I think, or 18. The Forbidden I made when I was 19 through 20 through 21. We stopped and started and stopped and started. I'd always had this totally ridiculous idea that I needed to make a movie before I got out of my teens. I mean, I made little puppet movies and things when I was 14, perhaps. Stop motion things using my Action Man and plasticine and all kinds of stuff, and they were very ghoulish, and I showed them to my school pals and they were great successes. We actually had a screening at school, and I remember there was a huge conflagration at the end and everybody burned, which I thought was very satisfying to watch all the, you know, everything go up. That was in color too. It must have lasted all of 4 minutes. I wanted to do it for the same reason that you go into a gallery and you see drawings and you come out and you have a pencil and you want to draw. I went into the movie house and I saw movies and I wanted to make movies. Now, one of the things that movies, mainstream movies, require you to do is to explain how a character got into an alternative space. There's a time loop, there's a door, there's a puzzle box which needs to be opened in the case of the Hellraiser movies. In avant-garde movie making, which is really what both The Forbidden and Salome were, no such call is required. You simply say, look, this is the world.
Next, more with writer-director Clive Barker, including another of his rarely seen early short films. And later, a chilling childhood dream, Exposed. Stay tuned.
Exposure.
Creation of his second short film, The Forbidden.
I'd be surprised if they weren't amongst the cruder pictures which you are showing technically. They had no sound. They were done in negative, or at least The Forbidden was done in negative because it was more expensive to do it in positive. So we designed the whole thing in negative, which may seem like a very elaborate way to get around a problem, but if you don't have money, you don't have money. So I could get paint free. I stole it from school and would paint these people, and the white people would be painted black, the black people would be painted white, and we had one process less in the development process, and it was just cheaper. People's shadows were white. People's eyes had this curious glacial look to them, which I loved. And I still love the eeriness of the movie. I learned one other thing, I think, even as I was talking about this. I think I learned one other thing, that sometimes the simple things can be the best things.
Next, more insight into the mind of Clive Barker.
This material contains at its roots important, resonant observations about the way the world really is.
When exposure continues.
Exposure.
Really clear, even from that early picture, that and I made that when I was 19, I think, the areas of my own obsession. And one of them is hieroglyphics. Very often in my books, there are invented languages, there are invented worlds, there are invented places, you know, in which the rules are different. The feeling is different. There's an otherness, a strangeness, and I think that otherness is very clearly present in The Forbidden. There's this nail board, which is a board punched with nails, which light shifts over, which definitely pre-echoes Pinhead from the Hellraiser movies, no question about that. Then there's the tattooing on one of the bodies, which has this kind of luminous kind of quality to it, which comes up in my stories very often. And finally, there's the whole issue of skinning. The character of Frank comes back from the grave in Hellraiser skinned. In The Forbidden, the lead character, is a voyeur who seems in some way or other to be punished for his voyeurism by having his skin removed. I had seen a lot of those pictures in anatomy books, and had been struck by this curious contrast between the fact that these were very violent acts that had been done to them, people's skins had been removed, but the people didn't seem in the slightest bit bothered by it. They were very casual. And I think that contrast is at the heart of a lot of what I do. I think that very often in my books and in my paintings, and certainly in the films, people almost take strange things for granted. We were shooting in incredibly uncomfortable circumstances. Pete Atkins, who gets skinned in the Forbidden, in negative, so it was covered, for the illusion, we covered him in painted strips. Firstly, I painted his naked body, and then I painted strips of cloth, which were then his skin, and were laid on him with a kind of paste of cold glue. I mean, the man was so uncomfortable. So he's lying there, stark naked, covered in these pieces of pasted cloth for hour upon hour upon hour, while very gingerly a bunch of his friends, pulled these pieces off as though they were removing skin from around his genitals. This takes a great deal of trust, and loyalty. And I remember that loyalty. I mean, that's very important to me. And Pete is still a very important friend of mine. Doug Bradley plays Herod in Salome. Doug ended up playing Pinhead in the Hellraiser movies. Pete wrote Hellraisers 2, 3, and 4. So those were very much, those guys remained part of my filmmaking experience. So did a bunch of other people. Discovering sexuality, discovering my own sexuality, finding that had a place in legend and folklore, which of course it does. It's such a strong component part of these kind of tales. That was important to me. And I wanted to find a way to tell those stories myself and keep that sexuality intact. I've always been a guy who does things by instinct, by painting, writing, filmmaking, theater. I trust my instinct. I trust what my gut tells me. I had no formal film education, still have no formal film education. There are those who say I should have full formal education. Well, the advice is the advice that I give to writers and to painters is buy the canvas, buy the ink, write the book, paint the picture, buy the camera, steal the film, borrow your friends, make the movie. Here am I 28 years after having made the forbidden, never thinking for 1 minute that the film would even exist, much less be shown on the Sci-Fi Channel. Feeling quite happy that I did that I took that risk. Do I think the movie's great? No. Do I think it expresses something of who I was at the time? Yes. And if art is to some measure about expressing who you are, and you have something in you that needs to be expressed, then you don't hesitate. You turn off the television and you go and express it.
Next, the award-winning student film Arcade.
Mary.
When exposure continues.
Exposure.
With clay animation, home videos, and some half-hearted attempts at computer animation before entering the School of Visual Arts. There he created the very successful award-winning short, Arcade.
Hi kids. I'm not an extrovert and I don't like dealing with people very much. I created my entire animation in my room, in my little cell of a room. My set was in one corner and my computer was in the other corner, and that's the way I like to work, in my cave and alone.
You feel an itching in the small part of your back.
Mary. 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 Mary.
Where snowfall is never known, neither long frost of winter nor torrential rain, there arises a dreadful thought that lasts 100 years.
the man who is Pinhead, actor Doug Bradley, star of Hellraiser and On Edge, in a special Exposure Extra web interview. Log on now at exposure.sci-fi.com. And join us next week for more fantastic visions of the future and beyond on Sci-Fi's cutting-edge filmmaking forum, Exposure.
Exposure.